Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session, Integrating Security into the CI/CD Pipeline. And I am Ritika Chakraborty. I am your host for the day. Before we get started, we would like to go over a few house rules for our attendees. The session will be in listen only mode and will last for an hour, out of which the last 10 minutes will be dedicated to Q&A. If you have any questions during the webinar to the organizer or our speaker, use the Q&A window. Also, if you face any audio video challenges, please check your internet connections or you may log out and log in again. And very important announcement for our audience. We have started CPE credit certificates to our attendees. The criteria to get the CPA credit certificates, the attendee needs to attend the full webinar and then write an email to cybertalks@eccouncil.org. Then our team will share the CPE credit certificates with you. Also, we have we would like to announce our handouts. Take the screenshot of the running webinar and post in your social media like LinkedIn or Twitter, tagging EC Council and CyberTalks. Use the hashtag CyberTalks. We will share free handouts to our first 10 audience. As a commitment to closing the cybersecurity workforce gap by creating multi-domain cyber technicians, EC Council pledges $3.5 million towards CCT education and certification scholarship to certify approximately 10,000 cyber professionals ready to contribute to the industry.
Did you know that you can be part of the lucrative cybersecurity industry? Even top companies like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, IBM, Facebook, and Dell all hire cybersecurity professionals. The cybersecurity industry has a 0% unemployment rate. The average salary for an entry-level cybersecurity job is about $100,000 per year in the United States. Furthermore, you don't need to know coding and learn from your home, and you get a scholarship to kickstart your career. Apply now. EC Council is pledging a $3.5 million CCT scholarship for cybersecurity career starters. Scan the QR code on the screen to apply for the scholarship. Fill out the form.
If you want to know more, kindly visit our website given in the chat section. Now about our speaker. Adora is an award-winning software engineer. She works at the intersection of the metaverse, cloud engineering, and artificial intelligence, and is passionate about cloud and emerging technologies. She is also the vice president of the Nigerian chapter of VRAR Association. Her work there involves creating more awareness for virtual and augmented reality technologies. Apart from building and advocating for mixed reality technologies, Adora is a digital creator and the founder of NexaScale, a social enterprise aimed at fostering the growth and development of technology enthusiasts, helping them start and scale their careers by providing resources and opportunities for project building and work experiences. She has courses online that teach people about infrastructure automation, and she has published multiple articles on software engineering, productivity, and career growth on her blog, Adora Hack. She has also a YouTube channel named Adora Hack, where she posts tech content and could be used to software developers. Currently, Adora is pursuing a lead program at Stanford Graduate School of Business. She is the author of the popular Cloud Engineering for Beginners textbook, which is currently aiding numerous individuals in launching their cloud engineering careers. She is also the author of Beginning Azure DevOps. So, without any further delay, right now I'm giving the mic to Adora.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining this from. My name is Adora, and I am honored to be here today. I'm excited to be here today to be talking you through integrating security into your CI/CD pipeline. So before we actually start the talk, I will just quickly jump right into an introduction of myself. I think Kritika already did a fantastic job introducing me, but I'll just give a few pointers. So my name is Adora, and I am the founder of NexaScale. It is a social enterprise helping people start and scale their tech careers by connecting them to job opportunities or other opportunities that help people build as they look for jobs. I'm also a senior software engineer. I'm a multi-published author. I have written 2 cloud engineering books and 1 DevOps booklet. And I currently have, so I guess I would say I have 3 books, and I'm currently writing my 4th one. So yes, I'm a multi-published author in the genre of cloud engineering, technology, and that entire space. I'm also a Pulumi community engineer. I'm helping, to build the Pulumi community to get more people to use the amazing products that is Pulumi and make the community more engaging and vibrant. I am a digital creator as well. I have courses, articles, videos, different materials online that help people learn tech. And I constantly advocate for software engineering, productivity, and career growth in all of my things that I talk about, inspiring people to be more with themselves. And sometime last year, somebody called me an ecosystem advocate because I am one person that wants to see the tech community grow, and I do everything to sort of like make that happen. So I have adopted that as one of my titles as well. As you can see there, I am an ecosystem advocate. So now let's get right into it. Before I start talking about CI/CD security, I would first want to define what CI/CD is for people that maybe don't know what it is, are coming across it for the first time, or just need a refresher for whatever reason. So CI/CD is a software development approach that combines frequent integration of code changes with automated testing and rapid development, aiming to deliver high quality software faster and more reliable by reducing manual processes and ensuring early feedback for developers. Its purpose is to enable seamless collaboration, improve code quality, accelerate time to market, and enhance the overall efficiency of the software development lifecycle. The CI/CD process has become a very, very, very important process today in the software development lifecycle, because when you think about it like this, the typical flow when you write code, which is the CI/CD flow, is that you plan what you want to do either through sprints or whatever methodology your team uses. You plan which code you want to write, what features you want to build out, and then you write that code. And once you write that code, you would open a pull request to check in that code into the main branch or the primary repository. And then after opening that pull request, the code is built. And then after building that code, then you're able to test the code. If the test passes, then you create a release of the artifacts. You create a release of the binaries that you want to deploy. Once you've created that release, then you deploy, that to the different cloud services or the different destinations, because it could be anywhere really. You deploy that to the different destinations that the application is supposed to run on, the target destination for the application to run on. Then you go through operating and monitoring the application, getting feedback, and then planning again and going. So it's a cycle that just never ends for as long as the application is alive. And in this process, it's become very important to integrate security to it, because cyber threats are evolving at a very alarming rate, in terms of frequency and in terms of sophistication. It's like cyber attackers are getting smarter, they're getting sleeker. So you want to integrate security not just in the application itself, but in every single flow of the process that has to do with building the application, writing the code, deploying the application, and even put security measures in place so that when the customers are using the application, you are to a grave extent sure that they are fine. Different organizations are facing a surge in targeted attacks, advanced persistent threats, and emerging attack vectors. And this requires constant vigilance, robust security measures, and proactive defense strategies to safeguard sensitive data and systems. I mean, at the video you watched at the beginning of this talk, I mean, like, you saw that big tech companies, even sophisticated companies like Microsoft and Amazon and Apple and Meta, are hiring security professionals, right? Because security, everything is on the internet. We're watching this live stream via the internet. Imagine somebody hijacking the link of this live stream, coming in here, kicking me away as the host, and starts presenting rubbish to you. We've seen these cases where that's possible, right? So don't think that something is secure because it's on the internet, right? So you've heard people say things like, oh, the internet never forgets, in the context of social media. But the internet is also not the safe space you think it is, because everything is open, everybody has access to everything, and you want to protect yourself as a business. You don't want to, face targeted attacks. You don't want to have those threats ruin your business, ruin your reputation, send away your customers, and things like that. Integrating security measures early in the software development lifecycle as well is very crucial, because it helps to identify and address vulnerabilities at their roots. And everybody that knows me, online, offline, knows that I'm a big fan of root cause analysis, fixing things from the roots. Because the truth is, I'll give you a real life example. As someone that is ill and has a headache, if you or rather, as someone that is ill and has malaria, once you have malaria, different things would happen to you. Apart from the fact that you have malaria, you probably also have a headache. You would have a fever as well. You might be running temperature. You might be fatigued. You might be weak. All these different things happen to you. If you take painkillers, right, that would cure your headache. However, you still have malaria. You are still fatigued. You probably still have a fever as well, depending on the kind of painkiller that you took. So, but if you cure the malaria, what this means is that you'd have cured the fever as well, you'd have cured the headache, and you'd have also cured your fatigue. The point is, it's important to address things at their roots. When you think about it in the context of security as well, you don't want to be solving stem issues or branch issues, right? You want to think about it and solve the issue at the roots. You want to fix it from the very beginning so that it doesn't become something else. And this would actually help you minimize the risk of security breaches and to reduce the potential impact of security breaches on your application or on your system, because you've already set up rules in place that even makes it difficult for people to check in vulnerable code. So meaning that it will be very hard to release an application that suffers from some kind of security vulnerability, because you've put in security checks in your CI/CD pipeline. By addressing these security concerns from the onset, organizations can save time, effort, and resources, and that would otherwise be spent on addressing the security issues later and ultimately enhancing the overall security posture of the software. And also, even beyond enhancing the security posture of the software, there is also the bits of which I talked about, the reputation bits, right? Imagine building your application or your organization's reputation for like 5 years, 7 years, and a few security breaches are what puts you in the news and you are losing customers. Tarnishing your image is going to be hard to rebuild that image back. So you want to invest in security from the very beginning. Whether you're a software developer in the organization, you can bring it to your manager. If you're a decision maker, you should start thinking about it. If you are building your own personal projects, I promise you those things get hacked too. So no one should ever think I'm too early to integrate security into anything I'm working on. You are not too early. You are exactly spot on. The last thing that I want to say is that automating security checks is crucial for maintaining consistent and efficient security practices. By using automated scanning and analysis tools, organizations can quickly identify vulnerabilities and potential threats without relying on manual processes, because at the end of the day, as human beings, we will make mistakes. There are some things that our eyes will not see, that maybe, like, if we look at it right now, we will not see it, maybe when we're doing a review, but in like 2 hours, if we look at it, we would see that same thing, right? Things like that are not consistent, if that makes sense. So you want to automate those kinds of security checks as well, and this is what you can do once you integrate security into your CI/CD pipeline. If you automate that, security check, it improves efficiency and reduces errors, but also helps to uphold strong security measures throughout the software development lifecycle. So now I'm going to talk to you. I've talked about why you should integrate security into your CI/CD pipeline. Now I'm also going to talk to you about what I do with my CI/CD pipeline. If you don't ever want to integrate security, I think I've said this at this point, there's nobody that is too early in their projects to integrate security. Perish that idea and integrate security into your app today. So now let's talk about Pulumi. And Pulumi is, a tool that helps me do infrastructure as code. It allows developers like me to define and manage my code infrastructure using familiar programming languages. So if I want to build application infrastructure, like, I want to work on a serverless application, let's say I want to work with AWS. So I need an AWS Lambda function. I need DynamoDB because I need some DB integrations, and I need some other things as well. I need S3 and some other things. Instead of going to the AWS portal to do it myself, and instead of learning all these other tools that require me to learn a different programming language, if I am a Go developer or a Python developer or a TypeScript developer, I can pick up Pulumi and provision my infrastructure with infrastructure as code using Pulumi, right? And that would help me create all my AWS resources so that I don't have to deal with something called configuration drift, where I go to the portal and I create those things manually for a dev environment. Then for a staging environment, I've forgotten the kind of storage account I created, and now the configuration is no longer the same, if that makes sense. So Pulumi helps people like me, developers like me, and it's also very easy to become a DevOps engineer or to get into cloud engineering, DevOps, SRE, infrastructure, all of that through Pulumi, because Pulumi gives you the context. So if you're an engineer here and you're thinking about how to get into DevOps and cloud properly, if you start doing infrastructure provisioning with Pulumi, you are already halfway there. And this helps codifying infrastructure alongside application code. Pulumi automates the provisioning and management of cloud resources, making it easy to maintain and scale infrastructure. Developers like me can leverage their existing coding skills to define, deploy, and update infrastructure, improving productivity and collaboration. And this is what a Pulumi script looks like. This is a Pulumi script in TypeScript that is creating Azure resources. So it's creating an Azure resource group, it's creating an Azure storage account, and it's exporting the primary key of the storage account to me so that I can use the storage account primary key to connect to the storage account and do what I want to do with the storage account, which is store blobs, store information. right? So this is what Pulumi looks like. You write programs. You write whether you're writing in YAML or in TypeScript or in Go or in Java, which I think is a very fantastic thing. So now let's talk about the benefits of integrating Pulumi into your CI/CD. Pulumi allows you to do automatic updates to infrastructure alongside your application code. So your infrastructure would always be in sync with your application if you have a project that has like your infrastructure code and your application code in the same repo. So you can do seamless infrastructure and application updates. With Pulumi, you can also concurrently work on your application and infrastructure within the same version control system. So even beyond releasing the application, even beyond making sure that your application and infrastructure are always in sync in terms of deployment, you can also make sure that they are within the same version control system, which helps a lot with rollbacks. For example, there are some code changes that are accompanied, there are some code changes that are accompanied with specific infrastructure changes as well. So if you had to deploy the infrastructure first before doing the code, or deploying the code before doing the infrastructure, it might not have been a good experience. But Pulumi allows for parallel development, like I said. There's also automated testing. So your infrastructure changes can be subject to automated testing as part of the CI/CD process. And this obviously enhances reliability and stability of your deployment. So because you have Pulumi into your CI/CD, you can create a developer environment as part of that CI/CD process. When you are trying to do automated testing, you can create your developer environment, deploy your application there, and test it there. And if the test passes, then you can move to the next stage of actually deploying it into where it's supposed to be deployed. And if the test fails, then you can do rollbacks, which brings me to my next point. An infrastructure change introduces issues in the CI/CD process. As you are deploying, Pulumi can enable you to quickly roll back to a known good state, and this minimizes downtime and reduces risk. By integrating with CI/CD as well, changes in your infrastructure are tracked alongside application changes, providing a complete audit trail for all modifications. And Pulumi can also help scale your CI/CD pipeline. So as your projects grow, Pulumi will ensure that your infrastructure is efficiently provisioned as needed without you having to do too much, because Pulumi would handle that entire pipeline for you. And CI/CD with Pulumi also ensures that infrastructure is consistently deployed across different environments, reducing the likelihood of environment-specific issues. Like I said initially, when I was talking about not using Pulumi and deploying manually. If you are deploying a dev environment and maybe a different environment for production, you could run into environment-specific issues because you might have set a configuration in dev that you forgot to set in production, right? Because it's the same code. Your code is the single source of truth when you are doing things with infrastructure as code. Pulumi ensures that your infrastructure is consistently deployed across different kinds of environments. I've talked about some of the good parts of Pulumi. There's a lot to say, but this is a security talk, so I want to keep it within the context of Pulumi and CI/CD and security. But as we deploy with Pulumi in CI/CD, and these are like security considerations generally in every CI/CD pipeline, but because I'm using Pulumi as the tool that I use to do my CI/CD, I'm talking about this in the context of Pulumi. Some of these considerations are access control and authentication, thinking about access, who has access to what, and who can deploy what, who can create what kind of resources, and things like that. Secrets management, where am I storing my passwords, where am I storing my certificates, where am I storing my secrets, API keys, and things like that. Role-based access control, which I would still put under access control and authentication. Code review and security scanning, vulnerability management, third-party dependencies, and compliance and regulations. The truth is, if you don't secure your resources based on these considerations, if you don't have these security considerations in your mind when you are doing CI/CD, you basically are giving cyber attackers food, because your insecure resources and processes are like food to cyber attackers, if we're being honest. So now let's talk about how to actually address these security considerations that we talked about. The first one is access control and authentication. You should implement strict access control and authentication mechanisms to ensure that only one authorized individual or service can modify your infrastructure code or access cloud resources provisioned through Pulumi. So if you are using service principal authentication, you want to make sure that that service principal identity is the only identity that has, let's say, access, full privileged mode, full privileged access, in terms of creating and modifying infrastructure, and other people can only read, or other people would probably even need JIT access, which is just in time access to access things. You don't just want to give everybody access to be provisioning code and resources through Pulumi, because if that one person gets hacked, that's not good for you. You also want to think about secrets management. You should safeguard your sensitive information like API keys, passwords, certificates, other kinds of secrets. This sensitive information that you use in your infrastructure code, you need to securely manage secrets. And luckily for everyone, Pulumi has secrets management integrated into their configuration. So if you want to store Pulumi configuration in configuration files, you want a secret as well. You want to store a secret. Pulumi has ways to encrypt that secret so that you are not storing it in plain text. So you should tap into that. Pulumi also has RBAC features, so you can define and enforce granular permissions for users and service accounts. So you can only grant, the necessary privileges to people that are required to execute specific operations. It's important to use this role-based access control in your cloud service when you're integrating that cloud service as well. So even when you are giving identities, people's identities, for example, if I am in the context of Azure, I have an Azure AD ID, right? So my Active Directory identity, that thing that identifies me in the context of Azure, is something that I can say, okay, I only want to give myself a contributor role. So there are some actions that I cannot perform, right? So that's how you think of role-based access control. Are you an admin? Are you a contributor? Are you a reader? Are you nothing? Are you an owner? So think about it like that. Something else I'd like to talk about is code review and security scanning. You should include infrastructure code reviews as part of your CI/CD process as well, and also scan for those vulnerabilities or those misconfigurations, because as much as we are doing manual code reviews, you also want to add those security scannings, because you want to analyze your code, your infrastructure code, for potential weaknesses. For example, somebody might have declared a network security group rule that has open permissions for everybody. Somebody might have, when they were wiring their networking, or when they were creating like a secret management infrastructure, they might have given everyone some kind of privilege that is alarming, right? So having security scanning tools actually scan your code, your infrastructure code, to help you find those things would save you a lot. There's also vulnerability management, right? So you want to make sure that you are regularly scanning and assessing the security of cloud resources that you provision through Pulumi. And if there's any vulnerabilities in your build pipeline, your build pipeline or your release pipeline, you want to identify them and address them promptly. Third-party dependencies as well could be security considerations, security concerns, because let's say you are importing a library or a package that you are not the one that built it. You want to make sure that you are using a library that is actively maintained. You are importing it not from a random and sketchy place on the internet, but from the particular feed that is supposed to be imported from, where they can track it, and where it is actually a legitimate dependency. Because third-party dependencies are tools that cyber attackers actually really target. Because let's be honest, let's say I have a particular library that I know a lot of people are using, and I want to hack into a lot of people. I don't need to start targeting them one by one. If I can target that library, a vulnerability in that library, I would have been able to target everyone, right? So you also want to make sure that you are using third-party modules or packages that you are sure are reputable. You want to be cautious of that, because that's one way that attackers go in. And you also want to stay informed about compliance standards, because you always want to make sure that your application is compliant for many reasons. You don't want to end up losing your reputation. You don't want to end up having issues or being in court settling different court cases. So you want to make sure that you align with compliance standards in the region that you are in. For example, if you are doing CI/CD and you are creating and provisioning infrastructure for users that stay in Europe, there is no reason why you should be trying to provision an infrastructure in a data center in America, because there are GDPR laws and the data of people in the EU must stay in the EU, if that makes sense. So now let's talk about benefits of integrating security into your CI/CD pipeline. You are able to identify and remediate vulnerabilities early enough, and this essentially enhances the quality of your code base. Immediate feedback and automatic security testing reduce the time taken to address security issues, accelerating the development process. By minimizing the risk of security breaches, organizations can avoid costly financial losses associated with data breaches and subsequent remediation efforts. That this is what we're saying at the beginning, tackling things at the roots. So the lower the risk of you being at a security breach, the fewer security breaches you would be in. And in that case, you would have avoided financial losses, and you would also keep your reputation intact. Integrating security into your CI/CD ensures that you adhere to industry standards and regulations, and this reduces compliance risks for you. Demonstrating a commitment to security instills confidence in your customers, fostering trust and organizations in its product. Like I said, there are many customers that once they hear that they've been hacked, or you've been hacked as the organization, apart from the ones that will take you to court and there's going to be a case of lawsuits and a court case that might drag for a very long time, other customers might just go to using competing products because they want to be safe in the fact that I am using this product, nobody's stealing my data. Imagine me using a banking application that I am not sure is very secure. I'm going to be worried about my card details. I'm going to be worried about my money just disappearing. I'm going to be worried about a lot of things. And you don't want to continuously put your customers to sit at the edge of their seats. They would leave you into, other people. So yeah, proactively addressing security vulnerabilities as well minimizes the chances of disruptions caused by security incidents, ensuring smooth operations. Integrating security into the CI/CD pipeline also allows for consistent and scalable security practices as software evolves and new features are added. There are other security best practices in the CI/CD pipeline. Okay, sorry about that. I was reading a message. There are other security best practices in the CI/CD pipeline. Like when you are writing the code, during code development, you should use secure coding practices and you should do code reviews. When you're building the code, you should use trusted dependencies and you should ensure that your build artifacts are tamper-free. When you are testing, you should implement security testing, such as static application security testing or dynamic application security testing. in your deployment stage, you also want to ensure that there's secure configuration and access controls. And we've talked about all this before, but I am just reiterating that when you're monitoring your applications as well, you should implement real-time monitoring so that if you find any incident or any breach or any problem, whether it's a security problem or an availability problem, you are able to respond as quick as possible. Yeah, so automating security checks in the CI/CD pipeline is crucial because it enables consistent and thorough examination of code for vulnerabilities and threats, reducing the risk of human error and ensuring comprehensive security coverage. By automating these checks, organizations can detect issues early before they get into production, they can speed up the development process and maintain a robust security posture without sacrificing efficiency. So now let's look at some kinds of security tools that you can integrate into your pipeline. There's static analysis tools, and these tools examine the source code without executing it. Like I talked about earlier, you want to be able to examine your infrastructure source code to look for insecure coding practices, like, oh, okay, maybe there's an insecure API usage here. Um, um, there's some kind of code injection that I shouldn't be doing, or there are places where it looks like I am passing in secret and I should not be passing in a hard-coded secret here. I should be referencing the secrets from a secret manager, things like that. Integrating these static analysis tools into your CI/CD would help you examine the source code and figure out what these vulnerabilities are, because sometimes we actually write code and we forget some things. So you want to make sure that you have these tools set in place. There's SonarQube, there's check marks, and there are a lot more as well. And these tools actually provide developers with early feedback on security flaws, enabling proactive remediation before deployment. There are also container scanning tools, and these are becoming popular because containerization and Docker and container management and Kubernetes and all these things are becoming really, really, really important, as well as organizations are increasingly adopting containerization. Scanning container images for known vulnerabilities is becoming very essential. Container scanning tools assess the images, components, the libraries, and the dependencies, and every other package that the application needs to run. Any package that will be in that container that the application needs to run. The container scanning tools accesses all those components and would alert the developers if there are any known vulnerability. A very popular one is Docker Bench, and when I was Googling, I also found that there is another one called Aqua Security, and I'm guessing that there are more as well. You should also use security orchestration and automated response tools. These tools streamline security incident response processes by automating repetitive tasks, orchestrating security workflows, and integrating with various security tools and systems. They help security teams handle incidents more effectively. They reduce response times, and they ensure consistent and coordinated actions. Some examples are Demisto and Splunk Phantom. These tools are for like incident response. So we have like incident response tools generally for when the application is misbehaving, when there is an availability problem or when there's a bug somewhere. But you also want to integrate tools for like security incident response, and you should consider tools like these. These are not preventive tools. These are tools that you use after the fact, like when there is already a security incident and you want to be able to automate some repetitive tasks or orchestrate some workflows and things like that will just help your security incident response process faster. Like many things in life, integrating security tools into your CI/CD pipeline also comes with challenges. I know that I've been talking for 40 minutes and it may seem as though, oh, it's a plug and play, it's a very easy thing to do. But especially for organizations that haven't been doing it and people that don't have the culture of doing it, it comes with challenges if we're being honest. The first and obvious challenge for me will be resistance to change. Overcoming organizational resistance and fostering a culture of security is like one challenge. If you don't already have that culture, maybe because you've always been lucky, you're a small business, you have a few customers you are serving, you're not making so much money yet, so you're not in the news as much, so cyber attackers haven't noticed you yet, right? And so you don't have that culture of security. I think how to mitigate these problems would be communication and awareness across the entire organization, as you know, the leaders of the organization, because everyone needs to um, foster a culture of security. You also need to train people in cybersecurity. I don't think cybersecurity training should only be for the cybersecurity analysts. Yes, they have an elevated job, right, when it comes to cybersecurity and things like that, but everyone should be aware. For example, you want to train your employees so that they are not falling for phishing scams, right? So that they are not using weak passwords and doing things that set them up for failure, right? You should also consider leading and supporting people in your organization or in your team as you are trying to adopt like a culture of cybersecurity. Um, the next one I want to say is that the truth is there are some security tools that are complex to use and might not necessarily integrate seamlessly into your workflow. I'll say to mitigate this particular challenge, you want to evaluate a bunch of all these tools before you select them. You're not just using a tool because you heard about this tool and it's nice, or your startup friend who is also building a business has one cybersecurity analyst that they hired and that was a tool they recommended. That both you people's business model might not necessarily be the same, and so you might not need that particular tool. So it's important to evaluate based on your current workflow, your current implementation, and what the tool does, and see if there is like synergy there. And if that's the case, then you can select the tool. You also want to create standardization and documentation around that tool, just so that when people come into your team, there's a document they can read somewhere, there's a wiki, there's a website internally that they can go and see a bunch of all these things. You are collaborating with security teams, whether you have an internal security team or you have hired like an external consult, like a group of security consultants to help you. But you want to make sure that you are collaborating with those security teams so that they ease into the complexity of those tools and it becomes easy for your entire organization. And the final challenge I'll say is false positives, right? Um, the truth is there would always be false positives, and yeah, it's a challenge. The game is the game. But you want to reduce false positive rates in security testing as much as possible by configuration tuning, um, continuous improvement as you go, because nothing is the last version. If you notice, there's always a V1, a V2, a V3, a V4, all of that. So you want to continuously improve, and you also want to continuously evaluate the tools you are using. And if there's a reason to move from one vendor to another, you should do that to save your business. I am going to leave you with this quote by the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella. And I actually just tweeted this a couple of minutes before this session out of context. So I'm sure some people might have been wondering why I tweeted it. But yes, when I was putting together this presentation, I found the quote and I thought it was beautiful. So I decided to share as well. Cybersecurity is much more than an IT challenge. It's a societal challenge that requires collaboration and shared responsibility. Thank you. If you'd like to read, these are some links that you can check out. There's other links as well. And I'm sure that if you Google like CI/CD security in your CI/CD pipeline, there are a lot of resources that would come up, because I think this is a very important topic and more people should start thinking about securing their deployments and their build pipelines a lot more than people are today. Thank you very much. I'm open to questions if there are any questions that anyone has for me.
Thank you so much, Adora, for this presentation, and our actually audiences also shared the same sentiments. So before we start the Q&A, this webinar is in sync with EC Council's CDE certification, Certified DevSecOps Engineer. Over 850,000 DevSecOps engineer positions are listed on LinkedIn as of uh, 2022. The average annual salary for DevSecOps engineers is $108,000 per year in US. And if you are interested to know more, kindly take part in the poll that's going to be conducted right now. So now we will be starting our questions, Adora.
Okay.
You can see the questions now.
Okay, so who implements security checks in the application? Is it the application security engineer or somebody else? I want to say that this depends on the roles in your organization and typically how things work. There are some teams where all they have are engineers and there's an external security team. So the external security team, which is like a bunch of CISOs and other security analysts and a few security engineers, give checklists about, okay, this is how we want you to deploy, these are the checklists that your deployment should have, this is how you should be deploying. But the actual implementation is done by the engineers on that team, right? So, and again, some other times you'd have like other teams where they are actual domain experts, they are actual security engineers that are helping with what's the word, they are actual security engineers that are helping with like those deployments and things like that. So I really think it depends on the team. It's not set in stone. But one thing I know for sure is that when you're thinking about what role a CISO plays in CICD, is mostly around like requirements, right? Like I said, um, observing what the current situation in the space is and saying things like, okay, I am creating these security policies and the different teams should enforce these policies or these strategies, that we create. I mean, the CISO can also help with like monitoring and security incident response and helping you to integrate those security tools as well. Again, I think it depends on the organization and how they actually just what's the word, allocate tasks to different people. These things are typically not set in stone. I wouldn't see it like that. The next question here, someone is asking how can cybersecurity be introduced and used in AI? I think there are many ways. I think there are many ways that we can think about like AI and security together, and as we grow, I think there are many ways that we can integrate with like AI and security together. And as we grow, you can, as we grow, sorry, one sec, I got distracted. As we grow, we can add like more ways to do that. The first thing I would want to think about is like incident response. For example, you can create like an incident response plan for like AI security breaches and things like that, right? I would also just quickly One sec. Sorry, I got distracted. I'll also just quickly like do a quick Google search so that I can answer your question better, or better still ask ChatGPT. Because I'm thinking about ways. I know that yes, you can do like threat modeling. I know that you can also do data integrity and things like that with AI. I also know that AI can help you with enforcing some of these things that I have talked about. So, for example, when it comes to scanning as well, right? Scanning applications and things like that, you can do more intelligent scanning. Yeah, you can do more intelligent scanning and anomaly detection as well with like AI. Yeah. Someone is also asking, are there any recommendations on tools to check for secure coding during your build? Sorry, it's like almost 3 o'clock and I'm getting like a bunch of calls because I need to go back to work. Yeah, someone is asking if there are any recommendations on tools to check for secure coding during the build. I wouldn't give like brand examples, right? Because honestly, I don't want to per se, but I talked about static analysis tools. So there's SAS tools and there are DAS tools. So they're like static application like security tools, right? And there are dynamic application security tools as well. And even LinkedIn as well, like if you, depending, I don't want to call it LinkedIn, but like style guides, let me put it like that. So like linters and analyzers, style guides, people use those things for like secure coding, right, in their build pipelines and things like that. Yeah, I don't know if there are any more. Sorry, I'm getting really distracted because everybody wants to talk to me right now and I'm not sure. The next question here says, as every minute, new exploits and payloads are being generated. So there's a chance. So is there a chance for the AI system to get vulnerable to the exploit? So someone's asking, there's a chance. So at every minute, new exploits and payloads are being generated. Yes. So there's a chance for the AI system to get vulnerable in the exploit. So how can AI systems provide cyber security? There's a chance for the AI system to get vulnerable. I don't know if this is a follow-up question from the first question. But this person is asking how AI systems can provide cybersecurity. I think I already sort of answered that question before, which for me is in like threat modeling, right? Which for me again as well would be like in monitoring and anomaly detection and analytics as well, reporting, as well as incident response. So I think incident response is like a good way for, yeah, incident response basically. Okay, sorry, Ritika is sending the questions, so I just saw the last one. Incident response, I guess, is like that one way. Yeah, sorry, I've gotten very distracted suddenly. Incident response, phishing detection as well, and like threat modeling. So AI systems providing cybersecurity, I think for me, it's more these security systems integrating AI to make security better. I don't think it's a thing of AI systems on their own providing cybersecurity, if that makes sense. Yeah, so for me, I would say it's like cybersecurity systems, or rather these security tools integrating AI to make their current processes, like what they do today, better. And they offer like a bunch of things. I know I don't want to call brand names, but I think I'm going to have to call brand names at this point. I know Falcon Complete has like a lot of things that they do in the context of security, and now they've integrated AI into like their systems, and now they are better to do like they're able to do better threat detection. I think they also help with like security incidents response as well. So things like that generally. That's how I would answer this particular question. And like I said in my presentation, right, people constantly think of new ways to break the system. So we would also need to think of new ways to defend the system. So it's not a one-off. I really hope that I was able to answer that question. Security risks encountered by CI/CD pipelines. I think I already said that in my presentation as well. So I'll give a very, this is an example that I actually gave in, and I'm going to use Git as an example. I gave this example in like an article that I am trying to write that hasn't been released yet. So let's just imagine that you're writing code that integrates with a database, for example, and it's for something very serious happening in your organization, and you're supposed to do a demo, and maybe after the demo, if they like the product, then you can, so you would, what's the word, you would present it when it's still on your local machine, and then maybe if they like what they see, then you can check it in and go from there, right? Okay, so you can check it in and like go from there, right? I would say, imagine if when you were, are they calling me? Imagine if when you were what's the word? I think I need to just drop this phone. I'm tired of all these messages. Imagine if when you were getting ready for your presentation, you had coded your database connection string, like the secrets that would allow you access the database, the password. You had coded it into your code, like into your code, and then you made a git commit thing, right? Just because you wanted to keep writing code, and just because you wanted to keep writing code, and like you checked it in to source control. You are doing git commits. You've not tried to open a PR yet, so nobody has raised an alarm or anything like that, because you don't have like security integrated in your CI/CD pipeline. So nobody raised a flag, or there was no alarm raised or anything like that. So now you've checked in that thing, and then let's say you finished working on it, and then everyone liked it, your manager liked it, everybody around you liked it, and then you're like, okay, it's time to actually check in this thing. But because now you wanted to check it in, you had to do some refining. So let's say you refined the thing that you were working on, and you now reference that secret using like a secrets manager. Whether you reference the secret from a secrets manager or not, you've not rolled that secret. What this means is that people can still get access to that secret if they go to your commit history. So now you've opened a PR, people have looked at the actual pull request, but nobody looks too deeply to check commit history to see that you made a mistake and accidentally committed the secret or something. And then somehow you check in the code, right? The code is working, you are integrating with database, you are building what you said you were going to build. But now you've created a security problem that was introduced by your CI/CD process, because now everybody knows, or everybody can know, what your database secret is. And if an attacker goes to your commit history, they'll find that database secrets and they'll be able to go into your database and steal people's data, delete people's data, or just cause havoc, right? So that was like one practical example aside the examples that I have given. Sorry, just give me 1 second. This is like work hours, so yeah. That was I'm just going to hold this one. That was one practical example, apart from like the example that I have given throughout the presentation, right? Yeah, so security risks encountered by CI/CD is like one of these types of risks, right? Vulnerability detection as well, or rather vulnerabilities as well. There are like different vulnerabilities in your pipeline and you don't address them. And there are different bots that actually scan your repo sometimes. And they scan your repo for those vulnerabilities. They can exploit those vulnerabilities, and that's the end for you. Another one is through libraries, like I said, especially with open source libraries. And that's why open source security is now becoming a thing, like a real thing. Yeah, open source security is now becoming a thing, like a real thing. So many people, many attackers, many companies are using open source tools, right? So it's like, if these companies are using open source tools, if me as an attacker can exploit these open source tools, I don't need to do much, right? So, and this is where securing your CI/CD process comes in as well, because you want to pass the library, like when you want to ingest that library into using it in your own code, you want to make sure that it goes through a feed that is secure, right? And it's not just from a random feed on the internet. And if you don't integrate security, or rather these kinds of measures, into your CI/CD pipeline in the first place, it could get like problematic for you. Yeah, so I've been able to answer, like, I hope I've been able to answer all of your questions here. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Adora. It was a wonderful session, and we have got good feedbacks also from our audience. So before we conclude the webinar, do you have any small message for the audience?
Not necessarily. I don't have like any message for the audience. I just want to say thanks to everyone for coming around. Yeah, I want to say thanks to everyone for coming around and for listening to me. And I also just really find that Satya's quote powerful. Let me pull it up real quick. Give me 1 second. And it says cybersecurity is much more than an IT challenge. It's a societal challenge that requires collaboration and shared responsibility. I guess what this means is that regardless of whether you are a security expert, or you are a normal software engineer, or you are just somebody that doesn't really care and you're doing the things that you're doing, cybersecurity is a societal challenge, and it's a shared responsibility for all of us to maintain, a healthy space on the internet. Yeah, so I'll close with that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this message to our audience. Before we end the session, I would like to announce our next Cyber Talk session, which is threat intel analysis and its influences on hunt team operations and so is scheduled for tomorrow, which is 8th September, and the session is a fireside chat session. To register for this session, please go to our website, which is www.eccu.edu/cyber-talks. The link is given in the chat section. Hope to see you all tomorrow. With this, we are ending the session. You all may disconnect your line. Thank you. Thank you so much, Adora.
Thank you.